All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show with your hosts, Alex and Chris, hotter than the sand, bigger than the ocean condit, your American villain voices, and as always, serving up the lukewarmest of lukewarm opinions in what is a scorching hot United States summer. Apparently, no one can play here or do anything here because it's just too damn hot. Before we hop into this one, go follow the socials linked in the show notes: Apple, Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify. Rate, listen, subscribe, review it, all those different things. Clearly I'm out of practice because we have not been meeting often because there has not been much villain news to talk about. Chris, in the absence of Villa ruining your life, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Fresh back from the beach. The weather here has been bearable. I dare say it's downright pleasant right now as the sun's going down in North Carolina. But yeah, all in all, great. And I don't know that not a lot of news on the Villa front is a bad thing. And we'll obviously get into that as we go through this podcast. But Alex, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm tired. A couple weeks away, a lot of movement. You know, we were in Maine with the in-laws. Beautiful up there. I actually got to wear a hoodie in the evenings because it got cool enough. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
Love a summer hoodie. Made it down to see my parents in Massachusetts and then New York for my cousin Corey's wedding. And it was a beautiful wedding, beautiful time. But when you're traveling every 4 to 5 days, I feel like you're always living in mild apprehension of the next movement. And so, you know, after the first couple days in Maine, I felt like we were never truly settled. It's great to be home. I just wish it would stop raining every single day at some point, but maybe I'm wishing for too much with all this heat.
Yeah, I think that's a problem. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, and you know, from me asking for too much from the weather, let's talk about Villa fans who might be asking a little too much to ask for any transfer incomings. How'd I do?
Yes, I agree.
So we're going to talk about the transfer updates a little bit, more outgoings than incomings. We'll talk about what we feel like that means for Villa overall. And then we'll do a little bit of an opposite from our last episode. So last episode, we power ranked players in groupings by how likely we thought they were to be moved on by Villa. Not whether we would sell them or not, but whether we think that they're going to ultimately depart the club this summer. We're going to do the opposite now, and we're going to power rank the positions that we think that Villa need to strengthen in the most. So stick around to the back half of the episode for that. But before we get there, Chris, let's talk about some of those outgoings and stop me, I guess, if there's any that you want to talk about in more depth. Costa, out on loan to Germany again, with another buy fee, which has basically been cut in half from what was rumored on his loan in January. That one was 20. This one is about 9 million euro. Any comment on this one?
That's a player that I've always rated pretty highly based on the limited time that we've seen him. But clearly something isn't gelling with Unai Emery because he's not getting any time and he's really not gotten many minutes at all. And for what we bought him for, 9 million seems like a relatively low amount because I think didn't we buy him for somewhere around 8?
Or 7 or 8, yeah.
So I think that something has happened where he's fallen out of favor, and I'm disappointed by it because he does look like a good player to me. But if he can't fit in the side, then let's move on, and I'm okay with that. It's not like this side is crying out for, oh, we need Costa out there. Clearly, he's going to be the difference maker, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you on this one. The fee disappoints me because when we brought him in, this was one of the more exciting young players in Europe. Supposedly, we beat out a host of big clubs to get him in, and it doesn't really feel like he's been given much of a shot. Now, he kind of seems to be becoming the new Freddie Gilbert, where all the fans seem to like him and think that there's a role for him to play, and yet the manager just doesn't see it. Probably saw the writing on the wall with this one when Garcia came in January for what was roughly a similar fee. But bit of a waste by Villa on the spending front, on the scouting front, and at this point, I think we just hope that he shows out in Germany and ultimately sort of, I guess, moves on, and we wind up kind of coming out in the wash. Enzo. So this one really seems to split the fan base. Reports are that it's 15 million euro to Benfica with what feels like a pretty massive 30% sell-on fee. He was offered to Valencia, the club where he really seemed to make a name for himself last year, at the same price, and they said no. So read into that of what you will. There are some people that felt like he should have absolutely had a place to fight for in the squad this year, just based on that success that he had in Spain last year. Clearly, Villa doesn't think so, and you saw some pretty wild numbers thrown out there for him earlier in the summer, 25, 30 million, something like that. Ultimately, only goes for 15. As part of the Doug Luiz deal, what was he, like 8, maybe,
Yeah.
give or take?
Yeah.
If he does double his fee within a year, what are you making of his time or lack thereof at Aston Villa?
Yeah, so we've never really seen him kick a ball for Aston Villa. So it's tough to say like what his impact on the pitch may have been. But I think that anytime you can get double the fee for a player that's never kicked a ball for you inside of a year, it's probably a good move to make with a 30% sell-on clause as well. I mean, that's a big number that you don't see very often. Normally, they kind of cap out at 10 to 15% at the most in terms of sell-on clauses. So I'm of two minds on this. I understand the fans who wanted to see him get time and get in, but it's also a very crowded position for Aston Villa. We have a lot of depth in that midfield area. So I don't see how you jam him in without taking someone else who is not even marginally, but or arguably, but a better player out of the side. And I understand that he's very young, but we have to understand that part of being successful is having a lot of good players at positions. And sometimes that means selling off a good player. Just as an example, I mean, we talk about it fairly often. Look at what Man City have done. They've succeeded and they've been at the top of the league. Throw the 115 charges out for the moment, because that's not what I'm addressing. But what they've done is they've sold a bunch of their very good academy players to other sides. And so you see all the time on Twitter or online where they'll talk about the impact of the Manchester City Academy on other clubs. And you see it regularly. So this isn't in itself a bad thing to have this much talent that you have to let go of a player that may have a bright future because it satisfies a need for PSR.
Yeah, and I think there's a potential that this one actually becomes seen as a very, very astute move by Villa because of the 30% sell on. So bear with me for a second as I kind of explain what I'm thinking here and why this might actually be a masterstroke. 30% sell on to me says that they probably could have sold him for 20 to 25, but they took the lower spend 15 to get such a big sell on tacked on there. Now, why does Villa do that? Villa does that because right now they have just come off of selling their women's team to themselves. EPL PSR is not necessarily an issue right now. Squad cost ratio rules are, and we'll talk about this a little bit later in the Leon Bailey deal as well. But really what Villa need to do right now is get wages off the book, not necessarily bring in revenue. So you get his wages off the book, admittedly at 22, they're probably not huge. You bank 15 million now. He's going to Benfica, and if they're going to sign on for a 30% sell on, they're either saying, we're never selling him for the rest of his career, which 22 feels unlikely, or we feel like we're going to be able to build him into, let's say, a $60 million player or even a $45 million player. And if they sell him for 45 million somewhere, get in let's say 3-4 years when he's 26. Well, guess what? 3-4 years down the line, Villa's now bringing in another 12, 13 million. And when PSR might be an issue again, that could go a huge way towards offsetting it without needing to upset the squad whatsoever. So I think this is a smart way to break out the potential Enzo payments to defer future PSR concerns. Now, that being said, what I do kind of agree with is that while you say we are crowded in the central midfield position, I agree. We don't necessarily have an out and out backup, at least I think you and I believe, for Boubacar Kamara. We've talked about Amadou Onana being more of a number 8, a replacement for Yuri Tielemans rather than being a true sitting defensive midfielder. And that's what Enzo was. So now there's no one behind Kamara. And so I'm going to ask you, coming off of that, unless you have anything to say about my PSR thing, do you read into this as Villa feeling confident that Boubacar Kamara is going to sign a new deal?
Yes, I do, because I don't think they would have moved him on without that. And I also think that we may see a tweak in tactics. And what we may see is Tielemans playing a little further forward and Onana coming in or starting in the deeper role, and sometimes Kamara staying out or being able to rotate a little better. So I don't think you're ever going to see or often going to see all three of them on the pitch at the same time, but I think you're going to see a little bit more movement around where you'll bring Onana in at the same time as Tielemans, and Kamara will be off the pitch. But that's just a guess on my part. But I do think it also does mean, yes, they are confident that they're going to get the deal done with Kamara, because I don't think you move on from a 22-year-old player if you don't think you can re-sign your starter.
Yeah, fair point. I would love to see some more rotation amongst those positions. Having Kamara and Onana as a double pivot, particularly when we need to sit in. I mean, those are two absolute units that are going to be super physical and beneficial. So year under his belt, under Unai's system, Onana's, as you pointed out in some of our previous episodes, really talked up how much he's learned from Unai Emery. I think we'll see a lot more minutes out of him, hopefully, assuming he stays healthy.
Including Spanish from Unai Emery.
Yeah. Next one, and I think this one's going to be quick. Louis, I really think he should be given a chance in the first team. Barry, pretty close to going out on loan. I think somewhere in League One or the Championship.
So that's his level. I hate to break it to all the Villa fans who saw him score that goal in the U21s, was it a couple years ago, where he scored the winning goal.
I was in like League Two, the banger.
No, I'm talking about with Villa, with the Baby Villains. He scored the winning goal in the Baby Villains U21s, I think, a couple years back. And look, I get it. He's a English striker. He's local
lad,
whatever. Yeah. Like, he's also too small and not good enough, and too old. So I'm good with moving him on and getting him. Like, his level to me looks to be the Championship. Looks like his top. Looks like his apex. So I think this is the right move, and I think that if we can get him on a permanent deal out, I am fine with it, because that guy is not our striker of the future. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, Championship might even be pushing it for him just due to size, ability. I don't know that he's set the world alight at League One, where I say he should be leading the line for a Championship team. And you know what? That's great for him. That's still a super high level of football to be at, and it's okay. I'm with you. Hopefully we ultimately get a fee for him, but for the same reason that I just mentioned on Enzo and, potential PSR down the line, I'm okay getting him out this year on loan. Hopefully he kind of builds up that fee a little bit and we sell him next year, and, that benefits PSR after we've brought in a few more players. And speaking of loans, this is actually the one that brought on this idea. And Honestly, I forget who the Twitter account that mentioned this was, but otherwise I would give them a hat tip.
It was AVFC updates.
There you go. AVFC updates. Leon Bailey joins the Villa Expendables at Fenerbahce on loan, supposedly with a mandatory buy option. This is not confirmed, by the way, not confirmed, but at least seems to be accelerating. There's been a lot of smoke around this one on him going out to join Jose Mourinho. Yeah, I'm sad.
Yeah, I mean, he's our guy, and I think he'll do well there. And I think like Fenerbahce are essentially building like Aston Villa from a couple of years ago in bits and pieces. If John Duran shows up, who knows? I'm sad about losing Leon Bailey because he was just such a special player, and you and I talked many, many times about his growth through the years. But you got to say it's a really good piece of business to loan him out to get the salary off the wages off the books for the year, at least a chunk of the wages off the books for a year, and then get $9 million in the next window. If £9 million, I should say, in the next window, if that is true. Like that's a really, really sharp piece of business by the back office. So I as much as I hate to lose the player, I am thrilled with the way they are going about it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Again, sort of like Costin, not 9 million feels low for a player of Leon Bailey's quality. Now I understand we're kind of getting a favor done in terms of getting the wages off the books. That is, Fenerbahce has been spending crazy money on wages this offseason, this transfer window. I don't know where the hell Turkey is getting all this money from, because it's not like they've been performing better than we have in Europe. But yeah, I would have liked to see him go for 2025. Otherwise, I still felt like there was a place for him in this Villa squad. We'll talk about how we feel about the right wing position a little bit later. But, to your point, the structure of the deal is very smart, very astute, much like Enzo. And so you can't really complain about it too much from that end. And by the way, we do not deal in the salacious, so we will not be talking about his video leak online. Chris did not spend hours studying it in excruciating detail to determine if it was AI or not and who the woman might be.
Did not.
Say it one more time and maybe they'll believe us, Chris.
Did not.
All right. That's it for the outgoings. Let's talk about a couple of the incomings. Crickets? I wish I had a sound drop for crickets. 3 rumors, if you can even call it that. Harvey Elliott, a lot of people talking about Dougie coming back. I think that's lazy journalism. And then as of today, supposedly registered interest in Alejandro Garnacho.
Yeah, so the Harvey Elliott
Martinez now, I think this is probably the time to do it.
Say that again. I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
I was just going to say, if you want to talk about Emi Martinez now in relation to the Garnacho stuff, this is probably the time to do it.
Yeah, so the Harvey Elliott one is the rumor that has the most smoke right now, and there's been a couple of decent follows online that have said that it's coming in the next week, but it's kind of died off since it sparked up earlier this week. So I'm not sure where we are with that. I think he'd be a nice fit for the club. I think he'd be a good player. I think you could get him on the relative cheap. So I think that would be a good move. Dougie, yes, I'd love him back. I don't think they sold Enzo to bring back Dougie. That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. At least if I were running things, that's not what I would do. So I don't think that's happening. It seems unlikely. I think with how wise Villa have to be with both spending, but especially squad cost, I don't think that's the swing they're going to take. Garnacho, anytime I see registered interest, that doesn't mean anything. That's a nothing phrase that that journalists throw out there just to make it sound like there's something there. Now, could it progress down the line? Maybe. I don't know. But, Aston Villa can probably also register interest in any player they want. It doesn't mean anything. So the one thing that we've seen out there is, and I think this is 100% BS, is a swap with fees for Garnacho and Emi Martinez. And that to me is insane. And there are some Villa fans online that like want to do that deal. And I think that there are way too many fans of this club that are willing to move on from the greatest goalkeeper I've ever seen in an Aston Villa shirt, and arguably the greatest goalkeeper in the world during his time at Aston Villa. I know last year was a down year, but you're not just going to pluck an Emi Martinez off a tree, and I'm not saying don't move on from him when the time is right, but swapping him for Garnacho is insane. Like that clinically insane. And I think I have to leave it at that.
Yeah. Harvey Elliott, fine. Good depth piece. I think he upgrades what you can bring off the bench in maybe a more attacking Yuri Tielemans kind of position, or a more defensive Morgan Rogers number 10 kind of role. I wouldn't pay over the odds for him, but if you could get him for 20, I feel like that's a decent bit of business, if not less. Dougie would require either a formation switch of some sort, or Unai Emery deciding that, I don't know, Dougie plays the 8, Yuri goes to the 10-second striker, where he has been effective. We're playing Morgan Rogers wide left to compete with Jacob Ramsey, or Jacob Ramsey might be getting sold. That's probably another outgoing that's been
JJ
rumored.
to Newcastle, that's the rumor.
Yeah, for 30 million that we haven't necessarily discussed yet. I don't think that there's enough smoke for us to really talk about that one in severe depth yet. So, if you did something like that, could Dougie come back? Maybe. But I think that, like I said, that's lazy journalism. He just was successful here and clearly needs to get out of Juventus. Garnacho, fine. He's someone who I admire his engine, but he has certainly had a lot of attitude issues at United. Comes and goes in terms of efficacy, was left out of the squad for a while due to disciplinary reasons. And does he come in and become an absolute starter on either wing? I don't know that he does, and you're going to give up your starting goalkeeper for that. Yeah, we got Marco in, and no matter how well he did at Brest over the past couple of years, like that's not a number one replacement for Emi Martinez. That is an upgrade, a very big upgrade on the number 2 Robin Olsen, I think.
Proper cup keeper.
What?
Proper cup keeper.
Yeah, I think that actually is a spot that Villa have definitely upgraded, is that number 2 keeper. But I'm not jumping bending over backwards to get Alejandro Garnacho in, and certainly not strengthening Manchester United by giving them Emi Martinez in the process.
Right, exactly.
So, Chris, let's summarize this whole thing. How are you feeling about the lack of news, the quiet news, the rumors that are existing around Aston Villa at Villa Park?
I'm okay with it. I think that there were some big moves made last year, particularly like Amadou Onana coming in. But I think that like this team as it stands clearly is good enough to compete for Champions League. Arguably should have gotten it last year. It's going to be a matter of everyone settling in and consistently performing, because I think that's the biggest thing that we lacked last season was consistent performances. There were highs and lows, right? We did a lot of peaks and valleys. So I think if we can get consistent performances, I think we're going to be in the conversation of exactly where we need to be at the moment, which is still continuing to build toward long-term sustainable competitiveness, right? So I'm okay with the squad as it sits, by and large, and I think that the moves they've made so far have been shrewd. So I am happy with the window. I don't need big splash news to be happy. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm a lot more nervous than you are, if I'm gonna be completely honest about it, and here's why. Or, let me put it another way. I think what this window is doing is solidifying the fact that if Villa is going to qualify for the 26-27 Champions League, it's gonna have to be through winning the Europa League rather than the league. And here's why. Have Villa done enough, or if any of these rumors manifest themselves, at least today, have Villa done enough to catch Liverpool? No. Have Villa done enough to catch Arsenal? I would say no. Have Villa done enough to catch Man City? I would say no. Have Villa done enough to catch Chelsea, who they tied on points with? Based on early returns for João Pedro and knowing that Liam Delap is behind there and it's another year under Maresca, who did very well last year and just won the Club World Cup, I'm going to say no. So is Villa going to compete for that fifth place spot again? And who are they going to do it against? Newcastle, who haven't lost Isak yet, could potentially and obviously have to deal with the Champions League. So maybe. Spurs, good manager that I think you both rate. Double swoop for Kudus and Morgan Gibbs White. You know, they're strengthening. Have they
Well,
strengthened
Morgan Gibbs White isn't a done deal, right? That's being litigated.
Suing. It's going through. Like, stop. They might have to pay them a little extra compensation in a tribunal that's going through.
Yeah.
So they've certainly strengthened, and how will they deal with Champions League? Who knows? Then you look at Villa compared to the squad that finished fifth last year. Well, you're looking at a squad that lost Marcus Rashford, Marco Asensio, Axel Disasi, all of whom played fairly significant roles over the latter half of the season, and now Leon Bailey, potentially Emi Martinez. And who knows who else might go before anyone comes in. I think we're forgetting the fact that Villa were eighth or ninth and going nowhere in January before they got those loan signings in. And so I'm looking at a squad that looked like, as we said at the time, the eighth or ninth best squad in the Premier League and hasn't strengthened at all. So I don't really see anything in that to all of a sudden say, yeah, they should be competing for fifth now. Other than, I suppose you would say that our European commitments are a little easier being in the Europa League as opposed to the Champions League. But I don't know that was that big of a factor.
So
Um,
I'll
I
only
don't know.
push back a little. I'll only push back a little because I think you're going to see improvement from Morgan Rogers. I think he had a very good start to the season,
Mhm.
a lull in a little bit in the middle and toward the end, but I think you're only going to see growth in his game. I think that you're going to see Ollie Watkins play. If he doesn't play better, I'll be shocked. If he I mean, even for him, who he's known to miss, some chances. He missed a lot last season. Missed a lot of big chances. Missed the most in the league, if I remember right. Most big chances in the league, right? So I think if I can take a positive away, the chances were being created. They just weren't being finished until we brought in the January signings, loan signings. So I I'm going to remain positive and think that we can compete for that fifth spot. I don't think we're going to finish top four. I don't think that's realistic. But I do think we can compete with all the clubs around that fifth spot, including Tottenham.
That's fair enough. And, obviously we're saying this on July 16th. A lot can happen before the season kicks off in what, 30-ish days, I think. Um, So maybe some people will come in. Monchi obviously said earlier this week that there is still a player to come through the doors, but I think we're counting on, to your point, improvement across the squad and from Unai Emery. If we're gonna compete for the Champions League through our league position as opposed to the Europa League.
And we do always have Europa League I mean, it's not the problem is we can't just be like, oh well, we'll just win that.
Right. We can't just say
that's
we'll
the
do
one
a
thing.
third,
It's
but
like I know Spurs did it, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
yeah.
It's not going to be easy to win. I promise. So let's not go in and say, oh well, we'll just win. Forget about league position. Let's just go in and win Europa. And I think the club's perspective is that league position always comes first. So I think you're going to see a lot going into the first half of the year to build that league position. And then depending on where they land in January, then you may see strategically placed transfers or loans in, and strengthening the Europa squad if the league is like, if finishing fifth is out of reach, then you'll see them really go for Europa.
Well, here's my thing on that too, actually, that, I've seen this bandied about on social media that maybe this will be Villa's strategy moving forward. Start the season with a certain number of guys, guess where we are in January. If we're a little behind the ball, then we just go nuts in the loan market and kind of go all out to try and catch up and make up the ground. And to me, that is a transfer strategy that essentially mirrors Villa's on-field strategy last year of we're just going to concede the first shot on target and then play from behind every single time. And, eventually, as we said repeatedly, that catches up to you and you can't necessarily win all of those. So I don't love that being the transfer policy. I understand financially why there will likely be years where that needs to happen. But I don't. January always comes at a premium. And so I don't want to rely on the January market as the one that we need every single year to try and qualify for the Champions League. Feels like robbing Peter to pay Paul a little bit.
Sure.
Okay, so let's jump ahead to our power rankings. We've been on this long enough. Like I said, opposite of last week, we're looking at where Villa need to strengthen. So we're going to use the positions from last year's formation because who knows if Unai is going to move it around at all. And we'll put them in order of least to most in need of upgrading. And as we talk about this, keep in mind we're assessing this from all the players in the position. So Chris and I have not talked about this beforehand, so we might have weighted this differently in our minds. But theoretically, we're thinking about not only how strong is the starter, but is there adequate depth behind them? Do we feel better about a position where we've got two quote unquote mediocre guys versus one good guy and no backup depth? We'll have those discussions as we go through. And whether we accounted for any anticipated outgoings or incomings, who knows? I guess we'll find out when we talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chris, we've got 9 positions here: goalkeeper, right back, center back, left back, central midfield, left wing, the number 10 second striker, right wing, and striker. So why don't we do these in groups of 3?
Okay.
Sound good to you?
Yes.
So my bottom 3 are center midfield in need of the least strengthening, left back, and then this might surprise some people, right back.
So I have center mid, left back, and striker, with a caveat in that we've got number 10 / second striker as a well, I guess. Never mind. No, never mind. No, I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna go center mid because I misunderstood. Center mid, left back, and then from there I've got number 10 after that.
Okay.
Yeah, like so as a second striker sort of player. Yeah, that's how I've got this. Yeah. Wait.
So
yeah.
So I think we can dispense with these pretty quickly. Center mid, we talked about this earlier, between Kamara, Onana, Yori. Haven't even talked about Ross Barkley yet. I think we feel like there is certainly adequate depth there and really, really good players to kind of cover that. Left back, Luka Dean rumors have gone quiet. So between him and Ian Matson, I think we both are well on record on this podcast talking about how much we value those two guys. So if no one's leaving, that is a position that we both feel rock solid in. Our
Talk
third,
about your right back.
Yeah. So, between Matty Cash and Garcia, I feel like we have an established starter and someone who theoretically should be up and coming and somewhat talented. I also feel like as much as we don't necessarily like him in this position, if an injury crisis were to happen, we also do have Lamar Bogard to play there. So
and for the record, I am one spot off. Like we're the next time around. We're splitting hairs at this point.
Last year we saw how good the defense was, particularly towards the end of the year when Matty Cash was finally healthy. Is he a perfect right back? And, a week in, week out Champions League level right back? No. But with all of that depth, with someone that experienced, someone that Unai Emery clearly trusts in the starting role, I just think that there are other areas in the squad that need more attention before we focus on bringing in a new right back.
Fair point. And like I said, I'm the next. Right back is the next spot for me. So from there, I go.
Talk about your number 10.
Oh, my number 10. So I guess what I'm looking at there is I don't see like Marco Asensio played like the true number 10 sort of role for me, where Morgan Rogers doesn't really do that. He plays centrally, in that sort of number 10 position at times, but I don't think of him as a true number 10. Plus he can play, wide as well. So I think that if we were to bring in somebody like an Asensio to play off of Watkins, I think it's a positive. I think that's an area where we lack a really skillful player that plays that specific way, I guess.
So why did you have it third to the bottom, least in need of strengthening?
Shoot. I flip-flopped him.
You got intermittent left, back, right. Like you understood the assignment.
Yeah, no, I did. I did. Hold on. I had. I wish I wouldn't screw these up. All right. I wish I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to take a picture of my notebook that I did this on, because I scribbled it and then I rewrote it, and it's a mess. So anyway, I meant to say that we actually. I can't believe I did that. All right. I meant to have right wing there. And for all the reasons I just listed, never mind. We'll just forget about this and move on, because I can't figure out where I'm going here.
Okay.
I meant to have that as right wing. I blew this whole segment, and I apologize in advance.
God damn it. Okay. We're professionals. We're going to power through. All right.
We are not professionals.
We're moving on to the middle yes. Three. So these are in need of some potential upgrading, but not necessarily the most. So I have fourth to the bottom goalkeeper, then number 10, and then center back.
So I have right back, goalkeeper, and number 10. That's the way I was supposed to.
Okay, so you have number 10 pretty close to the top. Okay.
Yeah.
So goalkeeper, I think we're doing this under the assumption that Emi Martinez stays. Obviously, there's an upgrade in the backup with Marco coming in from Brest. Could really make a dirty joke there, but I will not do it.
You're just gonna keep trying to put that in there, huh? That's twice I've seen you do it now.
Coming on. And so
go on.
We're losing this. So I think we both feel pretty good about that. We talked about right back already. So the number 10, I have this in the middle, kind of like you, is there a true number 10 second striker? I don't know, but to your point, but do we have a number of players that can play that central attacking midfield number 10 role? Yes. Between Morgan Rogers, to your point, I mentioned earlier that you can move Yuri Tielemans up there into that role. Daniel Malen has had some success as a number 10 second striker. So that's why I have it in the middle here. Could you get a truly skillful second striker, number 10 player to get into that spot? Yes. But also, if we didn't upgrade it by start of the season, do I necessarily feel bad about who's there? Not at all. And that's why it's dead in the middle for me.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Sixth to the bottom, I'll do mine and then you can do yours. I had center back. Reason for this is Pau Torres, Tyrone Mings on the left-hand side. I think we both feel good about them. I don't know who's backing up Ezri Konsa. And if he needs to play auxiliary right back, if he, God forbid, gets injured, which he has had some long-term injuries over the past couple seasons, I don't know who's there. So that's why it is fourth to the top. I feel great about those first three. But barring a real big jump from Lamar Bogard, I don't know who our backup is there.
Yeah, I agree. I have center back in the same spot, actually. So that makes sense to me. And I think the biggest issue is depth on Ezri Konsa's side.
Yep. Okay, so our three positions most in need of upgrading. I have right wing, striker, and most in need of upgrading, left wing.
So I have, where did I have this flip now? Now, see, I'm all screwed up. This is the way it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be striker, then right wing, then left wing. That was the way I had it. So I apologize for my earlier mess. The way I originally said it, I just explained it badly. But it's right wing, or it's striker, right wing, left wing is the way I wrote it. And I think you and I are going to agree here. We have Ollie Watkins is a great striker, but he can be a frustrating striker. We have Daniel Malen, who looks electric, but can't seem to find minutes. And so maybe it's Malen as a backup striker / backup winger, but I feel like we're lacking the quality depth across the front that we had with the loans that we brought in January last year, if that makes any sense. So that's kind of why I've got those three kind of grouped together.
Yeah, this is one where I feel like we have really good starters, not a ton of depth, and some of the players that we have for depth here would then wind up sacrificing other positions to play here. So, I have right wing, Daniel Malen, great starter, electric, dynamic, can make things happen. Please, no one hop in the mentions talking about how John McGinn can play here. He is not a right winger. He is part of that central midfield depth that we talked about at the outset of this. So it's really Daniel Malen and then what? Morgan Rogers. Now you're diminishing the number 10 position. So we don't really have anyone behind him. Striker, second to top. Ollie Watkins, to your point, great striker, probably going to do better now that there's no one behind him. But he's been an Iron Man forever, and I'm just waiting for that to catch up to him. Who's behind him? I have not seen Daniel Malen be prolific enough to think that if Ollie Watkins misses a significant amount of time, that Daniel Malen is going to start banging in the goals. He looks like a guy who's much more likely to contribute, let's say 8 to 10 from out wide rather than 15 to 20 down the middle. So the lack of depth here really worries me. I think we need some sort of a backup or someone to even potentially start ahead of Ollie Watkins. And then finally, I had left wing. You had right wing as the most in need of upgrading. And
I feel like it's half. I feel like yeah. Okay. What's that?
Yeah, I'm interested to hear your why, but let me let me try and pitch you on left wing first.
All right, let's hear it.
So I think the left wing is much more important again, assuming that Unai does not change the system. Left wing is much more important to how Villa build up than right wing. The left wing has often been that out ball. We've got the overlapping left back. If you don't have a consistently strong performer in that role, I think it's going to be very hard for Villa to break through presses, turn, and get going into space. And who do we have right there now? Only a very injury-prone Jacob Ramsey. You saw how much better Villa performed when they had a consistent, attack-minded dribbling threat in Marcus Rashford as opposed to Jacob Ramsey. Now, Jacob Ramsey has been good there, but I don't think that we can rely on him to play 38 games. And so when he goes down again, who's the backup? Morgan Rogers moving out of the 10. Like, there really is nothing that I feel great about in that left wing spot right now. And given that I just feel like it's a little bit more important to our ability to play through the lines than the right wing, that's why I have those two spots flipped from yours.
That's fair, and you make a really good point. My only thought, and maybe I'm being too positive, is that I think back to Jacob Ramsey when he's been fully healthy and how effective he is as a player. The question is, and it's a fair question to ask, how healthy is he going to be? Because so far, I mean, I'd be lying if I said he's been healthy throughout his career. So I think that from a purely talent standpoint, I'm comfortable with JJ there. The question is whether or not he'll stay healthy. So if you're factoring that in, yeah, maybe that gets me to flop the two spots. Like I said, it feels kind of like 6 in one, half dozen in the other to me. Mostly because of the same reason, though, it's depth on either side. That is the big concern. We don't have anybody right now that can play consistently if one of those players were to go down injured without weakening another position on the field. And yeah, like you can throw John McGinn up every now and then like they do, but it's not the same when he's playing on the right versus Daniel Malen or Leon Bailey, or whoever it may be in an attacking role there. So I can see your argument. And I guess I'm just hoping, or I'm not hoping hoping he stays healthy, but I'm banking on Jacob Ramsey's talent to shine through.
I guess for both of those is John McGinn the backup, and to your point, I'll give you some credit and say, where do I feel better putting John McGinn? And it probably is that left attacking midfield role where he can use that gorgeous behind of his to roll somebody and play us down the field rather than on the right wing where he's going to get behind. So you know what? Fair enough. I see merit to your argument as well.
Hey, look at you. Thank you. Also, he does play. I'll point out that McGinn plays much further forward for Scotland, but it's not the same, playing in the Premier League. But he does. He plays much further forward in Scotland.
Yeah. All right, that's all I got on this. I
made a total mess of that, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to try and give 9 positions in a row just to recap for everybody?
No.
I think we should do that just to emphasize how much you screwed it up. My least to most in need of strengthening, once again, is central midfield, left back, right back, goalkeeper, number 10, center back, right wing, striker, and left wing.
I'm going to try and read this chicken scratch, and I'll post the picture on Twitter if you want me to.
Please do.
Center mid, left back, number 10, which I made a mess of, right back, goalkeeper, center back, striker. See, I changed these. What did I just say? Right wing, left wing. There we are. Yeah.
No, you said left wing. You said left wing, right wing. You said right wing was most.
Dang it!
Also, you still have number 10, which you said we need help in, third to bottom.
But so I ended up saying that I screwed that up. I just had it backwards. It's a mess. It's a mess.
All right. This is arguably our worst segment of all time. So let's just
never doing this again.
Move on. Podcast is canceled. It's been nice knowing you all. We are hanging our heads in shame.
Well, mostly me. You for the association, but
I'm gonna say up the Villa, but Chris, I think you need to say down your head.
Down my head.
Hi, Mom and Dad.